Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Can anybody hear me? Okay. I don't understand why this set of earbuds is not working. I got him. Got him. Now somebody talk. Unmute yourself.
Hello.
Good.
Hello.
Maybe what?
Hello.
Were you guys all muted or what? Are we good? Can everybody hear me?
Muted, yes.
Yes.
All right, sorry.
Yeah.
Good, good, good. Finally, everything's straightened out. I need to do one thing, okay? Now somebody speak.
Hello.
Larry, speak. Larry,
Hello.
say something.
Hello. Hello. How's it going?
Elaine, okay. For some reason, technology, you gotta love it. Now, can you hear me? Somebody speak. Elaine.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right. All right, let's get done with the preliminaries. Gaith. Gaith. Jeremiah.
Here.
Jeremiah, is that what you want to be called?
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Jonathan. Jonathan. Andrew.
Here.
Okay. Wonderful. Elaine is obviously here. Kyle. Kyle?
Here. Here.
Okay. Mervena. Mervena. Ariana. Ariana, oh, that's right. She said she wasn't going to be here. Natalie. Natalie. Alaya. Guys, there are a lot more. Thank you, Alaya. You got to answer. Alexis.
Here.
Taylor.
Here.
Marlene.
Here.
And I'm sorry if I blister this badly. Abhishek?
It's Abhishek.
Abhishek?
Yeah.
Please correct me because I'm going to get that wrong. Sorry, I'm horrible with names.
All right.
Gades. Gary's. Bethany.
Wait, are you saying Garrus?
Okay, Garris.
Okay, yeah, that's me.
Sorry. Bethany. Bethany. Larry is here. Christine.
Here.
Paige.
Here.
And Monica.
Here.
Maria.
Here.
Adrienne.
Here.
Dominthe.
Here.
And you said to call you
T.
T. Thank you. See, I do read your thing. Kylie. Kylie. All right, going back to the start. Gaith. Jonathan. Mervena. Ariana. Natalie. Bethany. Christine. I'm sorry, you answered already. Sorry, Christine. Adrienne and Kylie. Is there anybody whose name I did not call? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to go fast. This is going to go super, super fast for us. Okay, you guys are not seeing you're seeing my face, right?
Yes.
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 All right. And Bethany has just joined us. All right. I did not create this god-awful hour of 8 o'clock. I did not make the decision to keep it at 8 o'clock. I was told that since the class is a live online class, that it has to start at 8 o'clock. I will not keep you as a general rule more than an hour today. That will change. I've got a whole bunch of stuff I got to get you through. Okay. And hopefully this thing is going to load up for me. My name is Mr. Popovich. Call me Mr. P, Professor P. Do not call me doctor. I have not earned that title. Does anybody know what a PhD is? Come on, don't be shy.
It's the professional degree above doctor.
Yeah, what do you got to do to get one? You got to study. You got to study one thing long enough so that eventually you know everything about nothing. Please don't call me doctor. I am just a simple person. Give you an idea of my background. I have a BS in chemistry from West Virginia University. I have an MS in chemistry from the University of Pittsburgh. While I was in Miami, I went back and got my degree in English, where I met my wife in Shakespeare's tragedies, which I've always somehow thought appropriate. And later on, I went back and got my master's in education from USF, the real USF, not directionally challenged University of Florida. Come on, guys. Tampa is not South Florida. Anybody who's been to South Florida knows that. After I got all these degrees done with, I was a synthetic chemist for a year. It was probably the highlight of my career because I got to hold in my hands 23 chemicals, crystals. Nobody else in the world had it. It was kind of a kick to be able to have something unique to the entire world in your hand. I spent 27 years as a forensic scientist. Yeah, I was out digging up bodies. I worked in Miami, Florida. I worked in California. I worked in Wisconsin. Guys, part of my background is I have grandchildren. Do not have grandchildren. They make you do stupid things. I was living in my perfect area in the world. I lived in wine country in California. My wife decided that she wanted to be closer to the grandkids, so that explains why I'm in Florida. I've been married for 31 years, been teaching at St. Pete College since 2012. One daughter, 3 grandkids. My expectations. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, turn on your videos. From now on, if your video is not on, you are not going to be marked present in the class. If you're not marked present in the class, you don't get to submit any reports. So turn on your videos. It makes for much more an attractive class. Paige, turn it on, Paige. The other thing is, it's amazing. You know, I was finding that when I was calling on people, they wouldn't answer for about 5 to 10 minutes. And they'd come back on and say, "Oh, Mr. Popovich, I left for a second." This way, I get to see that all of you are going to be here. Okay? So, all the time. Plus the fact, you know, I can look at some of your faces and understand when you don't understand something. So that's why I want the videos on. Question: what is the half-life of carbon-14? Now, getting back to the introduction, this is your class, ladies and gentlemen. You're paying for it. Get your money's worth. You're going to learn more if you come prepared. So I expect you to read the experiment before you come into class and do the pre-lab. It's an interactive class, ladies and gentlemen. That means I'm going to be calling on you. Now, most people, not most people, a lot of people dislike this, dislike being called on. Guys, I'm not only teaching you chemistry, I'm teaching you life skills. Believe it or not, Do you ever think you're not going to be called into your boss's office and be hit with a question out of the blue? So this is going to help prepare you to be able to think on your feet. Now, this is new material. Do I expect you to know everything from day one? No. I don't know is a perfectly good response. And the amazing thing is it saves time. So if you really don't know something, don't sit there and hem and haw about it. Just say right out, I don't know the answer. Because it saves us time. What else? Don't be yawning on me, Andrew. Don't be yawning on me. It's not that boring yet. All right. Required materials. So what is the half-life of carbon-14? Come on, you guys don't have phones with you?
5,730 years.
Thank you very much. I did that for a very particular reason, guys. I want you to leave your phones on because they're a vital resource. Tell me that you don't look at your phones 4 times an hour. The amazing thing is they are such a valuable resource because you don't have to memorize things. How many classes are you taking now that you have to sit and memorize facts that you can go and get immediately? Memorization is an overrated, quality. Other things you need to have curiosity. You don't need to buy a textbook. You're going to have access to each one of the experiments within Canvas. You do need a computer with a camera. It's absolutely necessary for the final because you are taking it with honor lock. If you don't have a reliable one, make arrangements to borrow one from a friend. Make arrangements through the college to purchase one, but you need one to take the final. I want you to have a calculator each time you come to class. You are going to have to do a notebook while you're here. I don't care spiral or composition. That's not going to matter. Next semester, when you're doing a face-to-face lab, it will become necessary to do a composition book. You're going to need a periodic table. What I will provide for you, I will be attaching to Canvas all the PowerPoints I use to present the experiments. Be aware, guys, that there are chemistry tutors available in the Learning Center. Use them. Don't wait until you're lost. If you don't understand something, try and get it from somebody. In my 63 years that I've been on this earth, I've understood that I learn from different sources. I may not be able to put something in a fashion that you understand it. I try and go about things in 2 or 3 different ways, but sometimes I won't be able to do that. You may be able to get that from another source. I will be addressing each experiment in a Zoom meeting at 8 a.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. Arriving in the room 15 minutes late is considered an absence. You're going to be doing 14 experiments that are broken into 3 sections. Is there anybody who is just taking an SPC course for the first time? I'm getting crickets, guys. Because if you're not, I need to make sure that you're familiar with the Canvas program. All right, if you've taken introduction here, then you know part of what I'm going to be saying in the next few minutes, but it's going to be a little different. Instead of 2 sections like we had in intro, there are 3 sections of each experiment. There is the pre-lab, pretty much the same thing you did in intro. The pre-lab are going to be questions based upon your reading of the experiment. We want to make sure that you've read the experiment. So you have to do a pre-lab. It is due the midnight before the Zoom lecture. In other words, on Wednesday, I believe we're going to be doing chemical and physical properties. So by tomorrow evening at midnight, you have to have the pre-lab done for the chem and physical properties experiment. Next Monday, we'll be doing the density experiment. So Sunday midnight, you have to have the pre-lab. So whenever the lab is going to be lectured on, the pre-lab has to be done by midnight of the day before. Results. The results section is basically going to be where you impart your information and calculations from the actual experiment. You're going to be directed to manipulate data and draw conclusions. The results section is due midnight, 6 days after I present the Zoom meeting. So on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing the chem and physical properties lab. The results section is going to be due next Tuesday at midnight. If the lab is presented on Monday, then the following Sunday midnight, you have to present the results section to me. Now, guys, there's not a whole lot of time between Monday and Wednesday. I encourage you to do the labs almost immediately after the material's been presented. It's going to be fresher in your mind, and it's done. You don't have to wait till the last minute. Questions about this stuff so far? All right, just like in introduction, most questions are going to include a text box. You're going to need to write the description of where the number originated, the correct measurement reading or significant figure number of digits, a label for the number, and an operation. Each text box requires that. For example, and I'm going to now go back and try and share screen for a second. Are you seeing the screen now, guys?
Yes.
Thank you. A graduated cylinder has 15.6 milliliters of liquid in it. You add an amount from the graduated cylinder to a beaker. The graduated cylinder then read 12.7 milliliters. The question is, how much liquid was delivered to the beaker? So in the text box, you would write initial volume of graduated cylinder, 15.6 milliliters. Description of the number, correct number of significant figures, and the label for that particular number. Operation, I'm subtracting the two. Again, description of the number, where it came from, the number itself with the correct number of digits, the label on that number. Then I put a line, volume of liquid delivered, 2.9 milliliters. Now, it's going to be easier for you to write it out script-wise like this, because you don't have to sit and fiddle around making sure that everything's lined up. What I'm looking for, I'm looking that you are correctly reading the measurement on the instrument you're using. I know from the number of digits on this read from the graduated cylinder that the lines on the graduated cylinder, the smallest line, is read to the milliliters. That 0.6 is an estimated digit. So I need that you put in the correct number of measurement readings from each instrument. Significant figures. Yes, they're rearing their ugly head again. You need to be able to manipulate significant figures and report out the correct number. If you do a minor calculation error, I'll take 30% off. Major calculation error, 50%. No description. Guys, I got to make this hurt, because if I don't make it hurt, you're not going to do it. And I need the description so that I can try and figure out how you came up with the answer you did. So if you don't put the description in there, 50%. If you have an entire system breakdown, in other words, you screwed it up, I will take 100% off. Okay. Post-lab questions, the third section. They're going to be worth 30 points. They're designed to evaluate what you've learned from the experiment. So basically what's going to happen is they're going to be, for the most part, word problems based upon how you just calculated your answer in the experiment. They may involve making logical conclusions based upon experimental scenarios. Again, this is going to be multiple choice, true, false, short answer. The post-lab, like the results, is due 6 days after the Zoom meeting in which the experiment's presented. Elaine, are you that bored?
No.
All right. Out of these 3 sections, 1 will be dropped. You have 14 that you're doing. You can drop 1 of the post-labs, 1 of the results, and 1 of the pre-labs. They do not have to be from the same experiment. There are 13 experiments that are going to count, 1,300 points. Lab notebooks. You're going to have 13 labs. Each is going to count 9 points for a total of a possible 117 points. It's based upon taking it out of 100 points. So if you do every lab notebook perfectly, you can get 17 extra credit points. And right now, I'm going to stop share. And I'm going to try and find, there we go. Okay. Might as well do this now. Is everybody familiar with Canvas? In this particular course, Course Home, the important part about Course Home is on every Sunday, starting with the one coming up, I will give an announcement. The announcement will be here. It will tell you what your upcoming assignments are for the upcoming week. There's also a small calendar here. Click on calendar. That is a larger calendar which will list all of the assignments. Course content. This is the guts of the course. Syllabus is in that particular module. Course schedule, I wouldn't even bother with it. It's just basically another calendar. Experimental schedule. If you want to know what's coming up, just click on it and click within the experimental schedule, and that will call up the individual experiments and when they're happening. Come on. Half of my life is sitting waiting for computers. All right. If you want to look at my comments, there is a template here that will lead you through how you look for my feedback on an individual quiz. More information in my courses tutorial. You have a page here that will allow you to print out graph paper. The important thing about the graph paper, I'm going to teach you how to graph in Excel, which is a whole lot easier than graphing things by hand. But if you do graph it by hand, one, if you don't use graph paper, it doesn't count. You can't hand draw graphs. The second, you have to use graph paper that is sufficiently minute. Trying to pull this up. And it is not working. Why is it not working? In any case, look at the directions here. They will tell you how to print out the graph paper. Now we're getting into the guts of the thing. From safety down through Vesper. Safety through Vesper are your experiments. Within each experiment, you're going to have a video showing you how the experiment was actually performed. You're going to have a pre-lab. They will give you some tutorials. There's a results section, post-lab, and lab book. I will go through and lead you through each one of these as it arises in the individual experiment. Any questions on how these are organized, experiment by experiment? Remember, you need the lab manual to call up each individual experiment. Print them out. After the last experiment, you will have a category, student data for labs. It's I believe a PDF that will literally experiment by experiment list the results that you need to enter into the results section for each individual experiment. That is where you find the results. Do not use the data that's presented in the video. If you use the data presented in the video, I can't correlate that with the correct answers. So this is where you get the data. Oh, come on, thank you. No. Come on. Thank you. There's a final review, and the lab final is right underneath it. There's something called instructional notes. And the important part about this, that one's not, I'm going to get rid of that one in a second. This is where you are going to find, this is going to be where you find my PowerPoint on the lab notebook that I'm going to give in a second or two. And it's going to be where you find an example of the notebook. We'll get back to that in a second. Zoom meetings, each one of these meetings is being recorded. What I do is I upload it into YouTube, and there's a YouTube link that then gets put onto a Word document, and that is entered here. Below that is where my PowerPoints appear for each of the experiments. Any questions so far? Christine, you're looking now as bored as Elaine did. Let me see if I can find this in another place. Thank you. Is everybody seeing the slideshow that's labeled Lab Notebook?
No.
You're not seeing it?
No.
Okay, thank you. Now are you... Now are you seeing it?
Yes.
Okay. All right. The sections of the notebook: objective, chemical hazards, procedures, data table, calculations, and conclusion. Each one of your lab notebooks will have a section. Objective: simple declarative statement about what you want to accomplish. All right. You guys have done density. You did the density last semester or whenever in intro. Simply speaking, what you did that day was determine the density of a liquid and a solid object. Right? That's all you want for the objective. A simple sentence that defines what the experiment is going to do. Don't make it larger than one sentence. Don't waste your time. When you do the empirical formula experiment, what you're doing that day is you're going to determine the empirical formula of a compound consisting of chlorine, copper, and water. Chemical hazards. You need to find out all the chemicals that are going to be used in the experiment that day. I need you to Google the hazards. All you got to do is type in SDS, comma, the name of the chemical. SDS stands for Safety Data Sheet. You click on that, it will give you information. Somewhere within that pamphlet is going to be long-term and immediate hazards of that chemical. I need you to handwrite them into the notebook. I need you to give me a synopsis. You don't have to write the entire, don't copy word for word all the hazards. Just give me a synopsis of what the hazards of those particular chemicals are. Lead nitrate has a whole bunch of stuff that's written in the safety data sheet. Causes irritation. If you swallow it, it's not good for you. It can lead to lead poisoning. It's also harmful if you inhale it. So all this information that's in the safety data sheet, I summarize. Are we understanding what I want by hazards? Shake your head, Larry. Thank you. Next, you need to do a step-by-step explanation of how you're going to do the experiment. It needs to be detailed enough that somebody can just look at your notebook and be able to replicate exactly what you did. I give an example right below that of what the empirical formula procedure would be. Do not cut and paste out of the procedures in the laboratory. You need to handwrite it, and it has to be in your own words. The data table. Each one of the laboratories has a data table. You can copy the table out, or you can handwrite it into your notebook. But it must be pasted, glued, taped, or stapled into your notebook. If it's loose leaf, in other words, if your data table, you've cut it out of the procedures, and you just shove it in the notebook without attaching it, it doesn't count. So you can copy the actual data table, but you're going to be putting in your own numbers. You're going to be handwriting the numbers or observations into the data table. Do not include calculations in the data page. It's confusing. Somebody reading your notebook, after you have put the information in there, if you write the calculations right over top of those numbers, it gets very confusing very quickly. So don't put the calculations in the data page. Mainly what I'm looking for are the correct measurement readings and the correct significant figures. Calculation section. You need to have one calculation birth to death. In other words, you need to be able to take those measurements that you made, manipulate those with calculations to come up with your final answer. If you do multiple trials, you only have to show one calculation. In other words, if you are determining the density of a solid object, you have to give me the measurement reading initially of the liquid, the measurement reading of the liquid plus the solid, you have to show me the subtraction. You then have to show me the weight of the object and show me the density calculation of mass divided by the volume. If I ask you to do the density more than once, you only have to show that calculation in the calculation section of the notebook one time. Again, I go through an example of the empirical formula from birth to death there. Now, the conclusion section. First statement, answer the objective. If what you set out to do was to determine the empirical formula of a copper, chlorine, and water molecule, then you have to say Cu2, the empirical formula was Cu2Cl, or excuse me, CuCl dot 4H2O. If the objective was to determine the empirical formula, first statement of your conclusion should answer the question raised by the objective. I want you to pose one error. I'm only making you do one error. State that error. Then I need you to analyze how that affected your result. As you put the solid object into the water to determine the volume, some water splashed up on the sides. What that meant is that the final volume was smaller than it was supposed to be. If the volume was smaller than it was supposed to be, that means that the density was larger. Do you understand what I mean by analyzing your error? And again, I give you several examples of that. Last thing, there are going to be times when you are going to need to do calculations to determine how close you were to the actual result. You're going to be needing to determine the accuracy and the precision of your work. A percent error, the formula is right in here. You take your actual value, the one you determined in the experiment, you subtract what you were supposed to get, divide it by the expected value, multiply by 100. That tells you the accuracy of the work you did. If you want to know how precise you were, if you do multiple trials and you're expecting the same result each and every time, you can determine how precise you were by doing a standard deviation. The way you do a standard deviation, you take your first trial value, you subtract the average from it, and you take the absolute value of that number. To that, you add trial 2 minus the average, absolute value. Trial 3, you keep on doing this until you reach your last trial number. Now, keep in mind, you're doing the absolute values of all these, so you're going to get a positive number on the top. You just simply divide that by the number of trials. And I go through an example of that in here. Questions about the notebook? Now, I am going to be scrutinizing the notebooks I'm going to be very, very particular about that. At first, I'm going to be really, really looking to see that you know how to write a notebook. Then, once I deem you are proficient at it, I'm just going to scan them after that. And you're going to get all 9 points. You have to prove to me that you can write a notebook. Once you do that, pretty much you are going to have perfect score the rest of the way. The other incentive to maintaining a good notebook is that you're allowed to use it on the final. And as a matter of fact, you have to use it on the final. There are some questions on the final that ask you about observations in the chemical and physical properties. The first lab we're doing on Wednesday. There are going to be some questions on that experiment based upon observations you write in your notebook. So definitely on Wednesday, maintain a good notebook. Questions about that? Questions about the lab notebook? Okay. Yeah. Back in instructor notes, underneath the lab notebook, I give you an example of what a notebook should look like. So you have both an example and you have the PowerPoint to direct you. Questions about the notebook, ladies and gentlemen?
So is this different from the lab manual then?
Yes.
Okay.
The lab manual is going to basically show you how to do the experiments.
Okay. And
It's
then
going to
this-
be typewritten instructions.
Okay.
Come on. Again, you're going to access that from the lab manual. Of course, it's not going to be in there.
Are we just going to be uploading pictures of the stuff then for you to grade?
Uploading pictures? What do you mean?
Of our manual and our notes for you to grade.
No, you're not. You're going to handwrite. The notebook is handwritten.
Yeah.
You're handwriting it. You're not taking pictures of anything.
No, I meant how are you going to grade them?
How am I going to grade your notebooks?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I misunderstood. Yes, you're going to go into the Dropbox. I'll show you that in a second after I get out of this. You ask a question about the lab manual. This is what the lab manual looks like. It goes through purpose, introduction, goes through, sorry, I don't mean to be going through this quickly. It gives you an introduction, a little bit of theory on what we're doing. Then it goes through the procedure. You do not have to write out the materials. Save yourself that. I prefer procedures being done in bullet point, but if you insist on doing it, writing it out in paragraph form, that's fine too. This is what I was talking about, the recorded data. You can print out the entire manual, or you can only print out this page and then cut it out and paste it into the lab notebook. But the reactants appearances, actually the data that you're putting in here has to be handwritten in there. Post-lab questions are not going to necessarily reflect what you're asked on in the post-lab. You don't necessarily have to do them. Questions about the manual? Okay. Now, Tell me if you lose the screen. Are you still seeing the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so if I was going to go into the submitting a notebook for the Chem and Physical Properties Lab, if you look down here, there is a lab notebook. It's a Dropbox. So you are going to have to take a picture, upload the picture of each page into the Dropbox. Questions on that? On that?
When it says sign diagonally across the pages, what does that mean? Or because I don't want to write over the work. That's the only thing.
You have to write over the work.
Okay.
Other questions?
And this is just our lab notes that we take, or the notebook.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that's when we would put in we would glue in the table and stuff like that, right?
You
Okay.
glue the table into the notebook, take a picture of it.
So other than the table, the manual is just instructions.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it's instructions plus those post-lab questions. All right, up here, communicate. That's where you're going to be able to email back and forth to one another. Submission review. This is where you can look at the comments I'm going to make in the Dropboxes or quizzes. Grades are where you're going to be able to see what the individual scores, what your grade is. Now, a couple things. Every year, for some reason or other, when the grade book is a disaster. You're going to look at the grade book and it's going to be like 10 million miles long. Every score in there is marked as a 0. If you look at your grade book right now, each one of you has a 0%. That's because all of the assignments have been marked as a 0. Now, if you want to know how you are really doing in the class, you're going to need to scroll to the right. And it will tell you grade after the Chem and Physical Properties Lab, grade after the Calorimetry Lab. So that's how you're going to be able to tell how you're doing in the class. Second point, each and every year this subject comes up. You're going to see different colors in the grade book, and you're going to interpret that as being it's dropped the wrong score. It's dropped my 80% when it should have dropped my 60%. If you question me on this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you, well, I want you to add up all your scores, dropping the lowest one, and that will tell you what your true score value is. And you compare that to the value in the grade book. If those numbers differ, then you bring it to my attention. I'm telling you, though, the grade book has been working for the 10 years I've been here. It hasn't changed, guys. Any questions about what we've talked about? The manual, how you're going to be graded, the lab notebook. Do you have anything, guys?
Do we need a table of contents in our lab notebook?
It is a good idea. Okay? Am I going to grade it? No. So it's a good idea. Get in the habit of doing it because it is a requirement for, I know, Dr. Warden and Dr. Musgrave. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, guys? Okay. Okay, just let me call this up just to make sure that I've talked about everything. Yeah. I've talked about that. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, that's pretty much done. All right, how are you going to be successful? Guys, one of my former students happened to be taking it in the summer. One of my former Chem 2 students said it, put it very, very succinctly. Chemistry is very, 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 very hard. Some of you are going to try and bluff your way through the course by not doing the work. You're not going to succeed. Chemistry is insidious in the fact that it builds on previous knowledge. If you're taking a history course, pretty much you can blow off the Civil War and then start understanding Reconstruction. And pretty much you're not going to be asked a whole lot of questions about the Civil War. Chemistry doesn't work that way. We're going to be learning about the atom. We're going to apply the atom to principles about Vesper. We're going to learn about the mole. The mole is going to lead into empirical formulas, and that's going to lead into stoichiometry. We're going to learn about the atom. That's going to pertain to gas laws. Guys, it is insidious. If you start to fall behind, you need to get back up on the horse and get it fixed right away. Now, specific things. I don't accept late reports. Ladies and gentlemen, how long do you think you're going to last in your job if you continually turn in your reports a week late? Your boss doesn't need the information a week from now. He needs that information by the deadline he gives to you. The other reason is that it's blatantly unfair because as you're looking through and grading reports on everything at once, you develop a bias. There are certain things you look at in the reports. If you look at another report a week or two later, you're looking for different things. You need to complete all the tasks that are given to you before you leave for the day. Keep up with the reports. In about 2 weeks or so, I'm going to look and see if you've been turning in your reports. If you haven't, I'm going to remind you at that point, hey, you've already blown through 2 lab reports to results sections. This means that one of those results sections does count as a 0. Don't turn in a lab report for a meeting you haven't attended. That's considered academic dishonesty. And if you are subjected to a hurricane warning, go to the website. My office hours are going to be after the Zoom meeting or by appointment. Basically, guys, I don't see any reason why you're here. If you have a question, just ask me at that time. Or if you have another way of, if you're in the week and you need to contact me, email me. But there is a caveat to the emails. I generally read emails first thing in the morning. This means if your question comes up in the afternoon, you're not going to get it answered until the next morning. Pretty much. Has everybody responded to my welcome email? I'm getting crickets, guys.
I've seen it. Yes.
All right. I need you to respond to it. All you got to say is, yes, thank you.
I didn't get it because I signed up last night.
Okay. Who is I?
Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew. I will try and make a note to send it out to you
Okay, thank you.
because you're special, Andrew. By the way, guys, just like I did right now with Andrew, I kid around a lot. I try and keep this light. I want to be able to, basically, if I make it funny, if I make it a little bit humorous, then the atmosphere is relaxed. It's an atmosphere more conducive to learning. With that, I offer this caveat. If you get upset with me, wait until after class, give me a phone call, and tell me, Mr. Popovich, I'm sorry, I didn't like the way you treated me. This is a true story. Okay? I was teaching this lab, and I was talking to a female student, and she was really, really, really worried about organic chemistry. And I said, it's nothing. Do you like to cook? And she said, yes. I said, well, it's the same thing when you're cooking. If you are making beef bourguignon, you got to take the beef cubes, dust them with flour, put them in a pan, fry them up, making sure it's real nice and brown. Then you add some cognac, fire it up, and you then add some wine, cook it for 5 hours, you're done. Organic chemistry is the same way. You take your ingredients. Oh, instead of your ingredients being food, your ingredients are going to be chemicals. You mix them together in a certain way. You may heat them up. You may cool it down. And eventually you get what you're looking for. Unbeknownst to me, another student who was sitting nearby overheard the conversation. So I read in Air My Bitches. You guys know this better as Rate Your Professor. I read in Air My Bitches 5 months later, Mr. Popovich is a chauvinist pig. He told one female student that she should be cooking instead of being in chemistry class. Now, it did that student no good to stew for 5 months over this particular comment. She could have talked to me and I could have explained what I was trying to get at. But it didn't work. So guys, if you're upset with me, call me, pull me aside, tell me I didn't like what you did. It's better to rectify the situation before it festers. So basically, I prefer that you email me, but if you have an emergency, I include the first number is my cell phone number. The house number is the number below it. Truthfully, guys, I usually don't care. I get chastised by my wife and daughter all the time for not carrying my cell phone with me. I usually don't have it. So if you want to reach me, best way is through the home number. If I'm not home, it goes right to an answering machine. I'll call you back. Important dates. You don't like what you hear today, you have until Friday to drop with a refund. If you decide that by these dates are wrong, I don't know why. I believe it is the 28th of June. I will fix this. The 28th of June, I believe, is the last day to drop with a W. What that means is that you won't get an F put into your transcript. It will instead be a W. And then you can Make up your own story as to how you got the W when you're explaining it in a job interview. But the F is pretty much the way it is. Guys, please pay attention to this. I don't like giving Fs, and I'm forced to if you don't do the W by the date. This is a Monday class. So on the 31st of May is Memorial Day. We do not have class. On the 5th of July, we don't have class. I am going to take roll each day. And just some general rules. If you leave class, don't put your hand up and say, Mr. Popovich, I have to go to the bathroom for a second. That is entirely too much information for me. Just go do whatever you have to do and then come back when you can. If you do get a call, guys, we have lives. Chemistry shouldn't be the most important thing in your life. If you get a call, simply leave, answer it, and then come back quietly. I expect to interact. Again, I will be posing questions to you. And sometimes it's going to seem a bit chaotic. I need your cooperation in this. I don't want you to do any stray conversations. I have one student that literally would dress up in costume and parade around the screen in these various costumes. And eventually it just got to be so distracting, I had to tell him to stop doing it or turn off his video.
Mr. P,
Yes.
did that happen to be last summer?
And the professor didn't stop it?
Possibly.
Okay. Sometimes it gets to be amusing. I had a mother that had her two sons. They had to be about 5 and 3. And literally speaking, I mean, the kid would come up and ask questions to me as we were talking. And it got to be funny and it got to be an amusing anecdote. I never heard anybody complain about it. If you do find something distracting, please jump up. If you feel embarrassed to do it in the class itself, give me a call later. Note, guys, that the lab and the lecture are a package. If you're not doing well in the lecture, you can't just keep on going to the lab. If you want to drop the lecture, you have to drop the lab as well. On the other hand, if you pass the lecture and fail the lab, you only have to retake the lab. Any questions about any of this? God, Mr. Popovich, this is ridiculous. Why is that in there? Okay. Okay. I am going to include the safety rules that are generally distributed for St. Pete College's Natural Science Department. I will include those. The only reason I'm going through this crap now is it's a bit ridiculous because you are not in a face-to-face class. So you're not going to be actually working with chemicals. But you have to have this because what your assignment that's due on Wednesday is a syllabus quiz and a safety quiz. So I have to go through this. If I give you a safety instruction, you have to comply with it. Anything that conflicts with my instructions, refer back to rule number 1. If you don't adhere to what I'm saying, You'll be warned. If you continue with the activity, I will remove you from the class. Personal protective equipment. You need to have goggles. They need to be worn the entire time. So guys, you need to go out and buy goggles. And when you attend the Zoom meeting, if I don't see you with goggles on, don't be absurd. If you're in a regular chemistry lab, you need to wear goggles from the moment you enter. Guys, when you're coming up to the face-to-face class, when you're doing Chem 2 in the fall, you need to wear a lab coat. You need to buy nitrile gloves. You need to wear them anytime you're handling chemicals. Shoes must cover the entire foot. No mesh coverings, no Crocs, sandals, or open-toed stilettos. Your top must cover your entire torso, through, over the shoulder, halfway down the arm. You need to wear long pants, dresses, or skirts from the hips down to the tops of your shoes. No holes in jeans. Don't wear synthetic fibers in a chemistry lab. Literally speaking, let me ask you, Larry, while you're removing your nail polish, have you ever dripped some of the nail polish remover on your nylons, Larry?
Sometimes, yes, sometimes.
All right. What happens? Nail polish remover is acetone. It dissolves nylon. So literally speaking, it's a bad idea to do this, guys. But if you are doing it and you put it on the nylon, you're going to create big holes in the nylons. We're working with organic chemicals. If you put those on synthetic fibers, you're going to make great big holes in there. No contact lenses in the lab. I had a friend in high school that spilled some chemicals and he nearly fused the contacts to his cornea. Don't horseplay. Respect the dangers that are in a chem lab. No unauthorized experiments. A green little chemist on a green little day mix some green little chemicals in a green little way. Now the green little grasses do tenderly wave, or the green little chemist, green little grave. I do not want any green little chemists on my watch. This means no unauthorized experiments. If you have a tube of blue liquid and you have a tube of yellow liquid, I don't want you to mix them together to see if you get green. Safety equipment. If you spill a copious amount of a chemical on you, go to the shower, pull the ring, stay under that for 15 minutes while the chemicals get washed away. Understand this, your goggles will only protect your eyes so much. I'm allergic to ethyl acetate, the nice smell that comes off of nail polish. My wife can't put on nail polish if I'm in the room because I get conjunctivitis. I wore goggles. I was exposed to a lot of ethyl acetate. About once every third week, I'd have to go to the emergency room, have my eyes flushed out. If you do get a tingling or a stinging of your eyes, go to the eye wash. Hit the plunger, let it flow for about 5 minutes, then put your face in for 15 minutes. All fire extinguishers in Chem Lab are universal. Each lab has a fire extinguisher. When you go into your lab for your face-to-face lab, there's going to be one door that leads to a chemical storeroom. If there's a fire, don't leave through that door. If you have a hood in your lab, do not put your head inside of the cabinet to look more closely at what you're doing because you've defeated the purpose of the hood. Don't eat in the lab. Everything that you bring into the lab needs to be stored in a place that's not in any walkway. Report allergies. In this lab, we used to generate something called hydrogen sulfide gas. One of my students was allergic to sulfur. I didn't know it at the time. The next week, she came in and said, Mr. Popovich, I was coughing up blood during the night. Immediately, I took her and removed her out of the experiment and told her, I'll give you the results. If you have an allergy, make sure that you tell the professor. Turn off equipment when not in use. Recap the chemicals, even if there's somebody behind you in line. Recap the chemical after you use it. Don't return any chemical. After you've taken a chemical out of the bottle, don't return it to that bottle. Either pawn it off on one of your fellow students or put it in chemical waste. If you spill, break, or set your partner on fire, tell me. Tie back your long hair. Guys, I realize it's horrible looking now. I used to have bangs. I was making beef bourguignon one time. My wife wasn't there. And one of the steps in making beef bourguignon is to put cognac into the mixture and light it. And I've looked at cooking shows. I'm not going to take one of those lighters and light it. Nah, I've got a gas stove. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the pan so that the alcohol vapors get the flame and it goes and lights, just like they do on cooking shows. And I thought, I can do this. I didn't realize that you're not supposed to boil the cognac for 5 minutes before you try and do this. I looked around. The kitchen wasn't on fire. My wife was at choir, and the dog wasn't talking. Nobody has to know about this. Then I started smelling. Oh my God. I burned a triangle out of my bangs, guys. So what I'm trying to do to illustrate that is that hair is very, very fine, and you're going to be interested in what you're doing. As you lean over, hair falls over and gets very close to Bunsen burners. Tie your hair back. Don't taste anything in the lab. Only smell if an experiment if you're instructed to do so. Pour acids into water, not the other way around. Do not aim a test tube at any other person. It may be loaded. Beware of hot glass. It looks just like cold glass. Turn stuff off when you're not using. Keep your hands away from your face, eyes, and mouth. If you get an itch, take off your gloves, wash your hands, and then scratch. Chances are, by that time, the itch will have gone away. If you are pregnant, or you may be pregnant, or you're thinking about getting pregnant, tell the professor. There are chemicals which will affect the fetus and yourself. Be sensible. Don't wear your Armani suit to lab. Wear old clothes. Wear sensible shoes. Don't put your electronics on the bench. Don't wear loose clothing. They may propagate. And an hour and a half out of your lives that you're never going to get back. I think I am almost done. Anybody have any questions? You should have one very important one. And that is, Mr. Popovich, what's due on Tuesday night at midnight? You have 4 things you have to do by midnight on Tuesday. You have to do the safety pre-lab. This is very, very, very hard. You're going to call up the safety pre-lab. You're going to click the button that says to start the experiment, and you're going to get asked one question. Do you want the 10 free points? Click yes if you want the 10 free points, no if you want to handicap yourself. Second thing you're going to need to do, you're going to need to take the safety quiz. The safety quiz is going to be worth 60 points. It's going to take the place of the results section. Then you have to take the syllabus quiz. Now, within the syllabus quiz, you are going to be asked to upload a picture. If you get a syllabus quiz grade that is in the 20% range, this means you have not loaded the picture correctly. Go back in, retake the syllabus quiz, and no, better yet, go back, review the procedures for uploading a picture, then go into the attempt again and try and re-upload the picture. You have an unlimited number of attempts. So that's the third thing. The fourth thing, you're going to have to do the pre-lab for the chemical and physical changes and properties lab. So those things are all due by tomorrow night at midnight. Questions, guys? Do I have anybody in lecture? Just for my own curiosity's sakes.
Me,
Who's me?
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah. Okay, good. I'll be looking forward to seeing you face to face, Jeremiah.
Yep, sounds good.
It is, I believe, Jeremiah, are you familiar with the camp? By the way, guys, I'm done. I'm done. So make sure you copy the phone numbers down. Make sure you have them somewhere.
You got it. Thank you, Professor.
I'm sorry?
You got it. Thank you, Professor.
Take care, guys. Jeremiah,
Uh-huh.
I believe, are you familiar with the Natural Sciences building in Gibbs?
Yes.
Okay. As you enter the west entrance, I believe the room is the first one to the left.
Okay.
Do
it's
not
West
do
entrance.
not quote me. Do not quote me on that, but I believe this is what it is.
Okay. Sweet.
Okay.
All right.
Anything else, guys? Do you have any questions for me?
So,
Is your
Professor
lecture,
oh, sorry.
I'm sorry. Monica, go first.
is your lecture only in person?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm the wrong one then.
Okay. Yeah. Monica, honestly, summer term is hard enough. Trying to do it on Zoom is a nightmare. I just personal experience.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Somebody else had a question.
Yes, Mr. P. I took the syllabus quiz, but the grade haven't popped up.
That's because I need to publish it.
Oh, okay, okay. I
So-
saw.
That's basically what's happened. Elaine, you won't view anything until I go in there and say, yes, it's okay.
Okay,
And I like to do that all at once so I don't miss anybody's grade. Does that make sense, Elaine?
yes.
So you probably won't see it until Wednesday sometime.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
I'm fairly good about turning out because I don't want to have a whole bunch of things to grade all at once. I'm fairly good at turning around lab reports.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody have anything else?
I have one more thing. So I noticed that so I took the safety and the syllabus, all that good stuff. I noticed that in the pre-labs, the safety and syllabus quiz is already graded, but in the post-labs, there's also another syllabus quiz. Is that located somewhere?
Let me try and figure out what you're talking about. Okay, now Jeremiah, I even think I'm in student view yet. Oh. Nope, this is not where I want to be. All right. Okay, I'm in here. Okay, I'm in course content now, Jeremiah.
Okay.
All right, where do you need me to go?
I was under grades. I couldn't find where this one in particular was in the course content, but under the grades, there's 2 syllabus quizzes. There's one under the pre-labs and then one under the post-labs.
Uh,
I was just curious because the post-labs just had one and I couldn't find that one.
okay, you said there's one under the post labs.
Yep. It's toward the top there.
Syllabus quiz, okay.
Mhm.
And where else did you say it was?
At the very top under pre-labs.
Oh, that yeah, this is the pre-lab. Jeremiah, you need
Mhm.
to go in.
Okay.
You need to go into course content.
Mhm.
And down to safety. And you need to click on this.
Yeah, it's the one I took.
Okay, if you took it, then you're done.
Oh,
These are
okay.
these are the 3 things you need to do, plus the pre-lab for the chem and physical properties.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Okay, I'll get myself back. Anybody else have anything else? Okay, guys, I will see you on Wednesday. Bright and early.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, end.